The time is now 6 p.m. We will now call this regular public meeting of the Board of Trustees of Humble Independent School District to order. A closed session of the board will now be held on the matters contained in the notice for this meeting. Should the board determine that any final action, final decision, or final vote be required with regard to any matter considered in such closed session, then such final action, final decision, or final vote will be made upon reconvening of this public meeting in open session. The time is now 6 p.m. The time is now 7:01 p.m. We will now reconvene into open session. Thank you for joining us tonight. Reminder that the meeting of the board are open to the public, but are not a meeting of the public. The Humble ISD Board of Trustees meet monthly in a regular meeting to receive reports from staff and take action from recommendations of the superintendent. The board receives the agenda and all supporting documentation several days in advance of the regular meetings, which allows us to ask and receive answers to many of our questions in advance of the meeting. Therefore, lengthy discussions are not always necessary on every agenda item, but as a board, we do have the appropriate knowledge and preparation for responses regarding the content of the meeting tonight. There are students and other guests present. To maintain decorum, respectful behavior is expected. Disruptive behavior and/or comments will not be allowed. And with that, our first item, the Kingwood Park Honor Guard will present our colors, and I would ask everyone to rise as we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. Others.
We will now observe a moment of silence. You may be seated. Moving on to our next agenda item, commendations and recognitions. Dr. Brown, can you please introduce tonight's inspiring moments?
Happy to do so, Madam President. In Humble ISD, we have more than 550 students who participate in the Junior Reserve Officers Training Corps program, better known as JROTC. Humble ISD has 5 units that represent the United States Air Force, Army, Marine Corps, and Navy. In tonight's Inspiring Moment video, we will learn more about the life lessons that JROTC teaches.
Our mission at JROTC is to motivate young people to become better citizens.
What I've learned in ROTC is it's a lot of learning about yourself, mostly. I've learned how to become a better leader. I've learned a lot of life skills too.
JROTC isn't a class. It isn't even an extracurricular. JROTC truly is an experience.
My father is Clarence A. Vaughn. He was a United States Marine Corps veteran, served in Vietnam, and he delivered mail for the United States Post Office for 46 years. When we realized that we were not going to be able to have the Marines out to do the military honor service at his burial at the Veterans National Cemetery, we're just kind of like, well, what do we do for those 15 minutes? And it just kind of dawned on me that, you know, we have incredible students at our campus with our JROTC program. Sergeant Bullock planned the script, and once we were all there, he started with a salute to his cadets, and they started to unfold the flag in front, and they did it so well. Once they finished and got all the way out for the popping of the flag, when these guys did it and they popped, it was perfect. You could tell that it was something that they practiced, that they wanted it to hit perfectly. They were just incredible. They hit that, and as soon as they did, the band student was off in the distance underneath a tree playing taps, which is the final song that is played at their resting place. As soon as that was over, they started the process of folding the flag back up, taking very precise steps, being very professional through the whole process. Once it was all folded, they walked over to my sister, myself, and my brother and presented us each with a flag. These are kids that represent Kingwood Park High School, and they also represent the JROTC, and they represent Sergeant Bullock. And watching them prepare for that and pulling such an incredible service off meant the world to my family. They were incredible. I couldn't have asked for a better group of guys to perform that service. You know, we just continued to thank them through it all, because they didn't have to do something like that. That's not a part of the curriculum.
At its foundation, this is a leadership education program. It's not a pipeline to the Marine Corps or the military.
That is one of the worst misconceptions that I think that's out there, that if you join JROTC, you gotta join the military. Very few, very, very few. And typically the ones that do are the ones that want to join the military anyway.
JROTC is here to prepare you for after graduation. They teach you life skills, financial skills, strategies to relieve stress.
And we have a plethora of activities in ROTC. So as I tell parents, I tell students, you don't have to be the biggest, the strongest, the fastest to be in JROTC program. We take all comers. We want you to come in, give it a try, find your niche, and hopefully you stay with us for 4 years.
What makes JROTC one of the best programs to learn how to lead is to show up and be a part of the different teams and get many different experiences, whether it's physical training, drill of any types, or academic teams. They're great opportunities that you should take.
The leadership piece of it is the biggest piece. You have the opportunity to lead, and then it is a cadet-led corps. So in other words, it isn't an instructor who's day-to-day giving these instructional curriculum. It is, hey, look, you give me an idea about what it is that you want to do, and I'm going to give you the sandbox to build it in, and then you go ahead and you have at it. And it all wraps around leadership.
I feel like JROTC has changed my life to become more outgoing, to take more chances, taking more chances that I may not be comfortable with, but may have a big and positive impact on my life.
If you're skeptical about joining, I say try it, go for it, because it never hurts to try something new. It's an amazing program that I was a little skeptical about in the beginning too, but after listening to my sister talk about it, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a chance. And I ended up enjoying it. I'm pretty sure you will too. It really helps with the future.
For me, I just feel a sense of joy knowing that one day I'm going to retire and possibly one of the students out of Humble High School can come and be my backfield. And it's just the joy of changing lives, seeing the parents, the joy of the parents also, and knowing that the kids really love the JROTC program.
It's kind of twofold for me. I still can wear the Marine Corps cloth and represent the Marine Corps and tell its story and be a good example of what a Marine officer is supposed to look like and talk like. But I'm also able to contribute to the common good of the country and then obviously the community of Humble ISD.
I'm a patriot, a leader, and a movement, to fulfill all serve and lead. I am therefore JROTC.
Without a doubt, that's an amazing, amazing program. And so tonight we have some of the stars from our video in attendance. So if you're here when I call your name, please stand so we can recognize you. Kingwood Park High School, JROTC and Aerospace Science Instructor, Master Sergeant Anthony Bullock. Kingwood Park Cadet Commander, Major Douglas Graves. Humble High School, JROTC Senior Army Instructor, Sergeant Major David Watkins. Humble High School Cadet Command Sergeant Major Ruby Melisson. And from Atascocita High School, JROT Instructor Major Marcus Carlston. Battalion Commander Cadet Captain Adrian Garcia. And Private First Class Cadet Bayvia Madan. So here's what's really cool about this is, did you know last year the ROTC graduates earned $1 million in ROTC scholarships? Yeah, that's pretty impressive. All right, so we want to thank our ROTC. Thank you so much. That was a great video, and we love that program. So glad it's a part of Humble ISD. Okay, so I would now like to invite Humble ISD Director of Advanced Learning and Services, Dr. Tong Udikrit, up to the podium to share some exciting news. I think it has to do with Math Stars.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Dr. Brown and Board of Trustees. Tonight, we're here to celebrate a National Math Star and National Math Stars finalists from Humble ISD. With me tonight are Humble ISD GT Differentiation Coach and Identification Specialist Judy Elliott and our Advanced Learning Coordinator for Elementary Schools, Jennifer Williams, who both played a key role in identifying students and developing local campus-based recognitions from the onset. To identify students to apply for the 2024 National Math Stars Texas cohort, we utilized the Humble ISD interim math test that was given to all third graders. Students had to score in the top 2% at the district level in order to qualify. So from this, we ended up nominating 55 third grade students for our National Math Stars program. Students who wanted to move on in the process had to submit an application and take a math exam with National Math Stars in July. And out of approximately 1,300 applicants across the state of Texas, National Math Stars selected approximately 200 finalists. And in Humble ISD, we had 7 finalists selected. So I'd now like to welcome some of our National Math Star finalists. Ian Haney of Whispering Pines Elementary. Drew Jones of Oaks Elementary. Dominic Lerma of Bear Branch Elementary. Abigail Travis of Elm Grove Elementary. Mia Vanderwalt of Deerwood Elementary. And August Utley of Groves Elementary. So all of these students that you see in front of you were named National Math Star finalists. Now, once selected as a finalist, the students had to take a proctored online exam and participate then in an interview with National Math Star staff. And on August 30th, we learned that Foster Elementary's Ethan Thomas was one of 61 students in the state of Texas to be named a National Math Star. Now, I want to let everyone know, by being named a National Math Star, Ethan will be awarded $100,000 in educational resources over the next 10 years. He'll receive $10,000 a year to go towards advanced coursework, mentorship for mathematicians, summer camp experiences, family advising, community events, and financial assistance for STEM extracurricular activities. So please help us again in congratulating our National Math Star and finalists.
All right, so let the excitement continue. Here we go. And so Humble ISD is involved in serving the community, and here to tell us more is Larry Wilson, Director of Career and Technology Education.
Good evening, Dr. Brown and Board of Trustees. In Humble ISD, we are proud to have over 1,000 students who participate in Health Occupations Students of America, also known as HOSA. Each year, HOSA students host blood drives. Organizing these events involves immense planning and teamwork, and students are involved every step of the way, from selecting a theme and recruiting donors to managing paperwork. They also undergo training in health and safety protocols to ensure that each participant is well cared for. We're honored to have the HOSA students and advisors from Atascocita, Humble, Kingwood Park, and Summer Creek High School who make these drives possible here with us tonight. And I'd like to ask them to come up at this time. Here we go. All right. Now I'm pleased to introduce Melissa Salazar from the Gulf Coast Regional Blood Center to share more about this remarkable achievement.
Good evening, Dr. Brown and Board of Trustees. I'm Melissa Salazar, Donor Recruitment Regional Manager with the Gulf Coast Regional Blood Center. Tonight, I'd like to recognize Humble ISD for an exceptional achievement in community service. I am proud to announce that out of 139 school districts across the state, Humble ISD ranks second in donations collected at blood drives during the 2023-2024 school year. Last year, Humble ISD HOSA advisors and students organized 18 blood drives, collecting an impressive 1,373 pints of blood, which impacted over 4,100 lives. Humble ISD is one of only 8 districts in the Houston area to collect over 1,000 pints of blood during the 2023-2024 school year. This speaks volumes about the district's commitment to community service. Thank you to all the HOSA students and advisors for your dedication to helping others. Your efforts are inspiring, and we are grateful for everything you do.
All right, now, if we're going to have
going to be the competition still? You guys, what time do you start? 8 till 1. Okay, I'm going to try to get over there. All right, final recognitions this evening. Our staff members go above and beyond, and Ms. Jerry Monbaron, Chief Community Engagement Officer, is going to introduce us to our super staffers for the month.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to recognize these super staffers. I first want to recognize our sponsor for this month. It is Camp Bow Wow, a doggy daycare and boarding facility near Summer Creek. So please join me in thanking as I invite Jennifer Baird, their Director of Operations, to join me up here. So come on up. Thank you for sponsoring the prizes for this month's super staffers. So, there you go. You can see on the screen the list of employees nominated for our elementary schools. And from this great pool of awesome employees, we would like to shine a light on our Humble ISD elementary super staffer, which is 4th grade Spanish immersion teacher from Bear Branch Elementary, Miss Olanda Morales. Her principal, Ms. Simmons, is also here, so come on up, Ms. Simmons. And as they are coming up, let me tell you a little bit about Ms. Morales. She is a dynamite 4th grade teacher who delivers high-quality instruction and sets expectations that challenge her students on a daily basis. She serves in a variety of roles, such as she is currently the 4th grade team lead. In that position, she fosters collaboration, communication, and team building among her teammates. She additionally serves as our liaison between the staff members and the Bear Branch PTA. So thank you, Alonda, for your excellent communication skills and keeping us all in the loop. And most importantly, thank you for serving our Bear Branch Bears as we continue to build excellence in all areas. Congratulations. Here's our list of secondary school nominees for this month, and I am excited to recognize as Humble ISD's secondary super staffer, a teacher at the Community Learning Center, Frida Humber. And I believe Miss Frida was not able to make it tonight. We'll see what's going on, but we'll make sure we'll get her award to her there. Can I go ahead and read what was said about Miss Frida? She creates a safe environment for learning in her classroom at DAEP. She goes above and beyond in her classroom to teach much more than academic content. She teaches her students to advocate for themselves when they need help with their academic learning, but also with social skills and mental health needs. She builds confidence in her students when many times they don't believe in themselves. She is much more than a teacher. She is a light to her students, but she's also a support to her colleagues. She makes everyone around her better, and we are extremely blessed to have her on our campus. So, well, congratulations to Ms. Humber. Okay, we're going to be doing something a little bit different tonight for our support staffer. So instead of recognizing one person as a support staffer, we are going to be recognizing a team. So before I call them to the stage, let me tell you a little bit about them. Humble ISD's dyslexia team provides support to 225 campus providers of dyslexia instruction to ensure these educators have the training and resources to serve our students with dyslexia and dysgraphia. In Humble ISD, 4,852 are identified with dyslexia or dysgraphia, and 3,504 of those students receive intervention. So in the last few years, here are just some of their accomplishments. Written, awarded, and successfully implemented 3 Texas Education Agency competitive grants totaling over $3 million. Worked with a Harvard business entrepreneur to customize the Reading by Design app to meet the needs of our dyslexia providers, focusing on efficient practices for legally required documentation so our teachers have more time to focus on intervention. Invited to speak at regional centers and dyslexia conferences, developed a best practice process for bilingual dyslexia intervention, and supported our educators in gathering data for assessment, resulting in better identification practices. The percentage of students who have been identified has climbed from 2 to 10% since the year 2014. Despite the ever-changing dyslexia landscape in Texas, this team maintains their focus on supporting and celebrating our campus staff who provide interventions to maximize outcomes for the students we serve. So I would now like to recognize this amazing team and ask that you hold your applause until the end. Director of Responsive Services, Laura Dowdy Northcutt. Dyslexia Coordinator, Allison Doolin. Dyslexia Specialist, Melanie Risco, Amy Green, Jasmine Ogega, Katie De Placido, Maria Trude, and Anna Braden. And then joining them up front is Henry Phipps, our Chief of Educational Support Services. So please join me in thanking the dyslexia team for the incredible job they do for Humble ISD students. What did we give it to? Thank you so much.
Well, Madam President, we could do more. We could be here all evening celebrating the great things that are going on in Humble ISD, but for tonight, that concludes our recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. The next item is public comment. The board encourages comments from citizens of the district or from district employees. Anyone wishing to speak, either as an individual or as a representative of a group, may do so following the procedure outlined on the agenda. The board asks that comments pertain to public education issues and be no longer than 3 minutes. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda for today's meeting. If an issue mentioned is listed on tonight's agenda, the board will defer discussion until the appropriate time during the meeting. In addition, the board has adopted complaint policies that are designed to secure at the lowest administrative level a prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns. Complaints brought by students and/or their parents, by employees, and by citizens may be heard in accordance with the board policies. Each of these processes provides that if a resolution cannot be achieved administratively, the person may appeal the administrative decision to the board as a properly posted agenda item. Copies of our district's policies on public participation in meetings and filing complaints are available on the Humble ISD website. The first person signed up for public comment is Mr. Adam Lofton. And then if I could have Ms. Christy Ford, Mr. Scott Ford, and go ahead and come and sit in these seats up in the front. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Adam Lawton. My family and I have been residents of Humble for a little over 16 years. I have 3 of my children who are currently students at Humble ISD schools, a junior at Summer Creek, and 2 students at Wood Creek Middle School. If you were here 2 years ago when the Summer Creek Orchestra played for the board. My daughter was the harpist with the enormous harp. My purpose with addressing the board tonight is to propose a change in Humble ISD policy with regards to early release. Under the current policy, early release is only available for students who are juniors and seniors who have obtained sufficient credits to guarantee their graduation within 4 years. I would propose that the board change the policy to expand the availability of early release to both 9th and 10th graders who meet 2 criteria. The first criteria being that they likewise have obtained sufficient credits to graduate within 4 years. For them, that would mean entering high school with a certain number of credits towards their high school graduation, but also that they use that period, the early release or late arrival period, to engage in an activity of meaningful personal enrichment, which may be arts practice, athletic training, religious instruction, tutoring of some kind. It's not simply for them to go home and take a nap. I have some written materials that I would like to submit to the board for their review at a later time, and would ask that this policy and this item be placed on the board's agenda for its meeting in January 2025. I'm happy to come back and discuss further, take questions from the board with anticipation that the board would vote to approve or deny this change at that meeting at that time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Ford?
Hello, Christy Ford, ITF Plus certified teacher. Certober has been an unprecedented success. Last year, we finished off the school year with 30 students certified total for the entire school year. This year, within following weeks of Certober, we have 26 people certified, 3 community members, 3 faculty and staff, and 20 students from all over this district. And we aren't even done with the fall semester yet. There's some more kids waiting until closer to Christmas break to take their test. We still have more opportunities for students and community members, and many have enrolled in my husband's online Moodle course. We are also working on the next certification, the CompTIA Plus certification, and those boot camps will be in the spring. So I just want to let you know how they went and how it's going and how it's going to continue to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ford. Mr. Ford?
Hi, Scott Ford, educator and educational author. I'm actually working on my second textbook right now. As professionals, it's important to admit when we make mistakes. And boy, howdy, did I make a very costly mistake. I've been doing IT certification off and on now for 20 plus years. I've done it for K-12, universities, and private sectors. And nowhere in my 20 plus years of career has it ever taken more than a week to get vouchers. Well, apparently, the district needs more than a month to get the vouchers. So following Certober, the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday that we tested, I still had some vouchers left over from when Atascocita High School had to buy them last year. And I had 17 people show up on a Saturday. I was honestly surprised by how many people showed up. We started testing, and I ran out of vouchers from last year. Well, if you're an educator, and your heart's in education, you're here to make a difference, not just in kids' lives, but faculty and staff's lives and in community lives. What do? Do you send them home? No, what you do is you bust out your personal bank card and you start buying vouchers at $138 a pop. And when it was all said and done, I had spent over $1,600 of my money. Not only did the vouchers take longer than a month to get, when the CTE department had them, it almost took them a week to give them to me. In fact, it was a day short of a week. So I admit, it's my bad. I assumed a level of competency and a level of cooperation for the common goal of helping our kids. And it is with that information and 3 years of observing issues in this district, as well as watching the TEA trials, that I am very happy to announce that at 3:30-ish this afternoon, I submitted the initial paperwork and I'm announcing officially my candidacy for school board next year. This is simply the longest episode of Undercover Boss ever. If you want more information about my candidacy, you can find me online at fordfortheboard.com. You can also find my Facebook. And one of the things that's true is I'm always available to talk. I'm an educator. And so whether it's talking to me here or talking to me after board meetings at a Waffle House, I'm always available. Once again, my name is Scott Ford, and I'm running for school board in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Ms. Powell, and if I could get Dr. Martinez to come sit in the front.
Good evening. After watching all 3 days of Dr. Fagan's hearing, I think it's time for you all to resign. Don't wait for TEA to take us over. Just save what's left of this district's integrity and go ahead and step down now. It's embarrassing. I honestly can't decide what was worse, the male genitals that were broadcast because the district's legal firm couldn't handle a Zoom call, or the board members lying and playing the victim. You had years to address Dr. Fagan's performance. Why didn't you just fire her then? We all would have supported it. This whole spectacle has been a massive waste of taxpayer money. And top it off, hearing a board member admit he didn't even know why he voted to fire her only makes you look more incompetent. Ms. Parker, I saw how upset you were during the hearing about being doxxed, but where was your outrage when you were informed in September that minors and staff members from the district were doxxed by our very own outside legal firm? You knew about it and didn't do anything about it. Mr. Scarfo, stop forwarding confidential district information from your district email to Insperity. It's sloppy and it's unprofessional. Newsflash, parents and staff members don't want their private information floating around on a third-party server that isn't owned by the district. My public records request uncovered your emails about the assistant athletic director's unauthorized Kronos payouts costing the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars. During the hearing, the athletic bookkeeper even admitted to destroying that evidence. But you called us despicable during the September meeting? It looks like we were just exposing truths you wanted hidden on your agenda. You really need to tell the public the entire story. The assistant athletic director who filed a complaint against Dr. Fagan's husband has yet to be held accountable or investigated for misusing public funds. And the bookkeeper who also benefited from this scheme even admitted to destroying that evidence during Dr. Fagan's hearing. Someone's got a lot of explaining to do. It's almost laughable that the board brought in all of these attorneys and wasted all of this money. Since we're being transparent tonight, explain to the public about the precinct chair who co-authors Mr. Grabowski emails that also funded your campaign and is now attending district cabinet meetings with you to intimidate staff members about test scores. Cat's out of the bag. Why are we only teaching a test? I don't think the teachers want this. This shouldn't be a political playground. This district is in peril, and you are the cause of it.
Thank you, Mrs. Powell. Dr. Martinez?
Okay. Good evening to the board and those in the room. For the most part, I came to the board to speak on three things. Number one, my daughter is a senior, the last of three. She'll be graduating this year. And so a lot of the things that may be ongoing into the next couple of years will not have an immediate impact upon my family. However, it will have an immediate impact upon those who are still here and who are dependent upon the board and the teachers and the administrators to do what is best for them. So with that being said, one of the things that I would like to point out that is very important that whoever's on the board when they get elected in May, that they remember the things that are important. It has to do with the funding and the academics in this district. In regards to teachers' funding, I have family members and friends who are teachers in this district, and the information that I have is that they would normally get a 3% raise increase in pay. This year it was only about 1%. Usually what happens is their insurance goes up as well, and so even with that 1%, it was probably washed out with the increase of their insurance. A lot of the teachers in this district are pretty much frustrated because they believe a good portion of their funds have been spent on what is going on between the board and the Superintendent Fagan and the amount of dollars that have been spent. Even if those funds come from a different pot, a lot of people don't understand that. But what they do understand is that our teachers are having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make a regular living. And yes, some may be getting $50,000 a year, but I guarantee you some of you that sit on this board is making 3 times that amount. The other thing that's very important that I would like for this board to be able to do, and whoever's on the board next year, those vouchers will likely pass in the state of Texas. So if you're going to say you're running to be on the school board and you're running to be on a public school board, then make sure you're here for the students who are dependent upon this public school system. If we have students who are only getting $6,800 or $6,900 because they go to the public school versus someone that can get a voucher for $10,000 to go to a private school, with that last bill, it was actually going to be allow students who are currently in private school right now to basically get a corporate refund, their parents. We have students who cannot do that. And so I want those board members to keep those vouchers in mind. You may not be able to stop it from happening. I'm not asking you to do that part, but I am asking you to be supportive of the students that you say you represent. And the last thing that I would like to point out is that if by chance the federal funding does go away, you have to realize that the state of Texas in the past was found wrong when they did not fund our students with disabilities appropriately, and they got fined $33 million for that. So you also have to look out for.
Thank you, Dr. Martinez. Our next item of business is comments by individual board members. I'll begin with Mr. Sitton.
Thank you, Madam President. Just want to congratulate all of our student athletes also. We saw a lot of great kids that came up tonight. We had 3 of our high schools girls volleyball teams make the playoffs. Tascasita got to the second round. Football playoffs start this week. We have 3 teams in the playoffs. We have 2 that are ranked in the top 10. So really a lot of exciting stuff. And I did want to mention, I know it looks like she left, but Miss Cindy Vaughn, who was in the video earlier, was here. And I had a chance to visit with her last week about the video. And she got choked up about it because when she went to the ROTC folks, they didn't bat an eye. They said, absolutely, we're here. We'll put something together that you'll be proud of, and y'all saw that in the video. And her entire family is grateful for what that organization did for their family at the funeral. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sitton. Mr. Holmes?
Sure. I just want to make sure to just honor our veterans, including Mr. Grabowski. Want to also honor my father, Command Sergeant Major Leroy Holmes, and my 2 uncles. They're late, but they served in the U.S. Army. Want to say, again, they've already left, but our junior ROTC students and their leaders, just extremely impressed. And again, thank you. The Math All-Stars, that's my favorite subject. So really great to see just the level of conviction and the smarts displayed with our students. That is just fantastic. And again, like Mr. Sitton said, I'm really excited for Summer Creek, AHS, and Kingwood going to the playoffs, our volleyball teams. Fall signing day, I believe, is tomorrow. I think why that's really exciting for me is because those student athletes are using their gifts. And I think the most important thing is that college education, whether it's fully subsidized or partial, just really excited about that. And also our dyslexia team. just thank you. Super, super proud of you for that. And again, I don't know if I can say this, but I'll say it, and if I get my hand slapped. Mr. Lawton, I love the idea. If you could email Dr. Brown and CC the board, that would be great. Those materials that you said you had in hand, if you have them digitally, if you could just email them to us. But I see where you're going. So thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Grabowski?
Well, good evening. Mr. Kirchhoffer, some time ago, gave me a coin as a veteran, and it's right here. And I just want to read the inscription, which I absolutely need my glasses for. But it says, on the coin, honoring all who served. A veteran is someone who wrote a blank check made payable to the United States of America for any amount up to and including their life. That's a veteran. Can I ask the veterans to please stand for their recognition? Any veterans in the room, please stand. Thank you. And I know we have at least one Vietnam veteran. Can you please stand again, sir? Because when you meet a veteran and you say thank you for your service, when you meet a Vietnam veteran, we went over this a year ago, you say thank you for your service and welcome home. So welcome home, sir. Thank you. And this Saturday at 10 o'clock at Atascocita High School, we have a workout with a vet. And so if you can make that, or you know of any children 12 and over, or 13? I know Mrs. Mountain will know.
13, 12, 6th grade and up.
Oh, 6th grade and up. Okay. So 6th grade and up can work out with Congressman Crenshaw is going to be there. It's going to be led by the Marine Corps Junior ROTC from Atascocita High School. We have a Black Hawk helicopter going to be landing on the field near the football field at the high school. And I got word today from the Lieutenant Commander from Ellington, Joint Base Ellington, always Ellington Air Force Base, me for so many years. From the Coast Guard down there, they're going to bring up a 30-foot Coast Guard response boat as a static display in the parking lot. So the children can know, or students or whoever can see a boat or a helicopter. And I told Mr. Fokker, next year I'm going to try to get a submarine, but no promises. And he goes, don't be surprised, Mr. Grabowski. I got a pretty big pool. So that's on. So Saturday at 10, it looks like the weather's going to be great if you can make it out. Thank you, and happy Veterans Day to all our veterans. Thank you.
Mr. Kirchhoffer?
Thanks, Mike. I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's 2 weeks away, but we won't be here. So, happy Thanksgiving.
Mr. Scarfo?
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to say there was a great integrated athletic event last Wednesday for the high schoolers, and tomorrow one for the middle schoolers. Looking forward to that one, too. That's always a lot of great fun. And also, Mr. Loughton, it was a breath of fresh air to hear something as you propose, and certainly something to look into. And I also, as Mr. Kirchhoffer just said, it's a little early, but I want to wish all of our staff, families, a very blessed, happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully everybody gets to spend time with friends and family, and especially our staff get a chance to regenerate for that last push to end the semester when we come back. So, because it'll be a hectic, I guess, 3 weeks that once you get back from there. So, yeah, so be ready, get rested, enjoy, have fun, be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scarfo. Our next item is comments by the administration. Dr. Brown?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I wanted everyone to be aware that we received this official notice. It is an honor to notify you that your district will be named a Texas Art Education Association Visual Arts District of Distinction. Only 16 school districts have achieved this honor for 6 consecutive years. This places your visual arts program in the top 1.3% of all visual arts programs in the state of Texas. And so I'll be going to Galveston Friday as they get recognized for this. So congratulations to our visual arts program. And one last thing, I wanted to address Mr. Ford comments this evening, since he chose to talk about this publicly. Let me just say, some of the things he didn't mention is the fact that he actually missed the deadline, and I want the board to be aware of this, for the original vouchers that were due, and the team reached out to him to remind him of that. Also, we met with Mr. Ford because he makes accusations about the team not being supportive of him, and so I wanted to understand that. The team is supportive of Mr. Ford and has tried to work with Mr. Ford. One of the things when he talks about the 50 vouchers that he received, we've requested, because we've not received the information on who those 50 vouchers went to, so we received that. And then one of the other things I asked Mr. Ford to do was to, if he wants reimbursed for the money he said that he spent, we need documentation and backup for that. Who did you spend those vouchers on? This is district money. This is public money. And so we need that documentation so that we can support the use of those vouchers. So I just want to clear that up, and I want you to have the whole story. And there's a lot more that went into that month that he talks about that would take too long to go into. So, and I'll be glad to address that with you all at any time. So that's all my comments this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Moving on to our next agenda item, action items from closed session. Item 4A, personnel recommendations. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
Yes, I move that the board approves the administration's personnel recommendations as presented in closed session with addendum.
Do you have a motion made by Mr. Holmes, seconded by Mr. Sitton? Any discussion? All those in favor? Item passes 6-0. Item 4C, proposed termination of probationary contract. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam President. I move that the board approve the superintendent's recommendation to propose the termination of the probationary contract of Patrick Maroney for good cause and in the best interest of the district, and authorize the superintendent to provide all notices and take all actions necessary for the same.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Mr. Scarfo seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor? Were you a yes? So motion carries 6-0. Our next item, item 5A, annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2024, single audit report for the year ended June 30th, 2024, and awards for the year ended June 30th, 2023, with consideration of the independent auditor's report included in the annual compensation financial report. Dr. Brown, I believe there is a presentation for this item.
There is, and I'll turn this over to Mr. Beatty.
And I'll turn this over to our auditor.
And we practiced that all day. Look how smooth that went.
Well, good evening, Dr. Brown, Madam President, and members of the board. About 2 weeks ago, we met with the audit committee to go over the results of the audit, covering the financial statements and the single audits as well. And so tonight we'll give you the highlights of what we discussed in that presentation, and we included an appendix as well for the additional information that's available to you all to review at your leisure. This is the engagement team that performed the audit. I want to give thanks to my team, Brooke Fuller, who did the heavy lifting, along with Cynthia Guerra. Patrick Simmons was the quality control reviewer, and I'm Selena Sedesetis, the engagement partner. I want to thank Mr. Beatty and Jennifer Nance as well for their hard work, and not just the finance department, but every department that assisted us since early in the springtime all the way to here tonight to get this final product. The finance team has printed the entire annual comprehensive financial report, which is close to 200 pages for some light reading on the financial statements. What we've done for this actual report is to issue an opinion on the financial statements. And there's 3 types of opinions that you can receive, and they worsen as you move from the bottom up. And so every entity wants an unmodified or clean opinion. The way you earn that, and notice that I say earn, it's not that we just issue them based on because we feel like it, but we have to go through these procedures. We started in the springtime, March, April timeframe, performing our risk assessment, identifying internal controls, the key controls, testing those controls, both over the financial statements and the federal awards that we tested as major. And then when the district closed its books, we came back in August, September, to perform our substantive testing, all in an effort to issue our opinion here tonight. Because you do spend more than $750,000 in federal funding, in fact, you spent a little under $60 million this year in federal funds, we're required to perform our audit in accordance with generally accepted government auditing standards, in addition to the generally accepted auditing standards that are applicable to any audit. We have to look at internal controls over financial reporting and also compliance that is direct and material to the financial statements. And so we don't have any findings to report over these financial statements, and we are issuing an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. The results, whether good, bad, or ugly, can be relied on by the rating agencies, by the Texas Education Agency, based on the procedures that we performed. As I alluded to earlier, you did have to undergo a single audit, and that's promulgated by the Office of Management and Budget, and also the Code of Federal Regulations, Section 200. Every year we have to go through a major program determination based on risk, and this year the special education cluster and then the various tranches of the ESSER funds were also tested, and then your disaster public assistance for hurricane funding from FEMA was tested as well due to the size of that program. We had to issue an opinion on these as well as test internal controls, and both are clean reports on these 3 federal programs. And we're going to focus on the general fund. In the appendix, you have information about all funding sources, but because this is your operating fund, and you adopt a budget and amend it throughout the year, we'll discuss the results as it compares to the budget. The actual revenues totaled $534 million, which exceeded the final budgeted amounts by $19 million. The actual expenditures of $517 million were under budget by $22 million. You did have net other financing uses, not sources, but uses of $20 million, and they were more than budgeted, $14 million. And the bulk of that, $15 to $16 million, was transferred over into the employee health insurance fund to cover those costs on behalf of the general operating fund. Fund balance decreased by $2 million from the prior year, so your total ending fund balance was $209 million. When we compare the general fund revenue budget to actual, you'll see where you fared between local revenue, state revenue, and federal revenue. You'll see an inverse relationship here as well, if you compare it to prior year, that your local revenue or property taxes, which makes up the bulk of that, is less than last year and came under budget as well. But your state revenue performed better than your budget, and that's due to the tax rate compression, which yielded a lower tax levy and therefore collections. But with the state aid formula, the state aid revenue was higher, both your foundation school program and your available school fund as well. This is the makeup of your revenue. You'll see that the orange portion of the pie makes up 61% or 323%. That's your state aid, which is based on attendance, and also a formula determined by the state. You also have state revenue for the TRS on behalf, which is offset by expenditures of the same amount of $28 million, and that makes up 5%. It does not represent cash outlay or inflow on both the revenue or the expenditure side. And property taxes were $151 million, making up 28% of your funding. Your local revenue, the red shade is $30 million. The bulk of that is your interest earnings. The market has been performing very well in comparison to prior years. When we look at your general fund expenditure budget to actual, you'll see that the bulk of your fund, we'll see it in the next slides too, that you spent under your budget in all categories, but the bulk of your spending occurs with instruction and related services, which is where you want to be. And if you look at your general admin cost, you also were under budget. But when we look at it in comparison to the other expenditures, you'll see that 64% of your instruction and related service cost make up the $517 million in expenditures. Your general admin makes up 3%, which is lower in comparison to the state and other your peer districts as well. Most districts are between 2 and 3%, so you're on the lower end of that scale. We still see other districts throughout the state that generate higher general admin cost. The state of Texas will look at the general admin cost in addition to other campus administration costs, and the cap is 8%, so you're well below those administrative costs. Now, the total general fund balance is very important. This is what the rating agencies will look at, especially when you're issuing debt, refunding debt, whatever the case may be, as well as the Texas Education Agency. This is a critical piece of information for them to analyze the district. You'll see that since 22, fund balance has dropped, but as I mentioned before, you had some transfers out into the Employee Health Fund, and also as the ESSER tranches of funds are dwindling and in the period of performance ended September 30th, 2024, you'll see that most of the costs are going to have to be absorbed by the general fund, whatever was transferred to ESSER fund, and affecting your fund balance. But these are the set-asides that are of most note are the assigned and unassigned. That's what the Texas Education looks at. So the $74 million and the $129 million in comparison to your expenditures. So those two categories of fund balance make up $203 million, or 39% of your expenditures. The Texas Education Agency asked for 75 days. The Government Finance Officers Association asked for 90 days. And so you meet that standard. And it's important to note too, because you're a June 30th year end, you have the first 4 or 5 months having to use the reserves in your fund balance. And your property taxes for the new levy are not collected until November, December of the current year. So, and finally, the other point is because you do spend a substantial amount in federal funds, all of those are on a reimbursement basis. The district has to pay for it first and then get reimbursed from the federal government. So it's not money that is accessible until the district pays it out of the general fund first. So it's always important to have a healthy fund balance in order to fund those initiatives throughout the district. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Ma'am, do you give a grade to our district, or what did you call it?
It was a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion. So the figures here can be.
Is that the highest level you give?
Yes, it's the highest level. The audit is the highest level of assurance, and then the unmodified opinion means that you can rely on it. There are no exceptions. There's nothing of note.
And how many years in a row can you estimate Humble has done it?
Probably more than 20 years. Yes, I know more than 20 years, at least 20 years. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
That's it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
Madam President, I move that the board approves the independent auditor's report by Whitley Penn, LLP, included in the annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2024.
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Holmes, seconded by Mr. Sitton. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Item carries 6-0. Moving on, report on delinquent tax collections for the period July 1st, 2023 through June 30th, 2024. Dr. Brown, I believe there is a presentation for this item.
There is, Madam President. As you're aware, the Texas Property Tax Code outlines the legal provisions for taxing entities to collect delinquent property taxes, and Humble ISD has employed the law firm of Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott for the collection of these delinquent property taxes for several years, and so they're here to report on their work.
Thank you, Dr. Brown, and members of the board. I'm Donnie Roseman. I know most of you, don't know some of you, so I wanted to introduce myself. I am the senior partner with Purdue, Brandon, Fielder, Collins, and Mott. The only thing significant about that is I'm the oldest person there. Yes, before Greg and Melissa give the report, I wanted to take a minute of privilege because of that age. Humble ISD is the second school district that I have represented. I first represented you in 1982. And I wanted to come out and thank you personally as I look at retirement at the end of the year. I'll still be involved, but not to the degree that I've been for the last 38 years. The reason I wanted to thank you is I've learned so much from this district about, one, your goals that you set for us have always been clear. We knew what our job was, and equally as important, we knew what you expected of us, meaning how you wanted your citizens treated. We can collect delinquent taxes. We don't make a whole lot of friends doing it, but we know how to do that. And if you told us you wanted to be 100% collected, we could get you pretty close. We get you pretty close as it is, but this room would really be packed, and I'm not sure you would appreciate that. So I just wanted to thank you again. I've learned a lot. I'm leaving you in great hands with Greg East and Melissa, and they're going to give you the report. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us. We always appreciate you giving us your time. I know that there's not, you've got a lot on your plate today, so we're not going to take up a ton of time. I'm going to make sure I can get to the right slide to start really quickly. We always like to start by giving you an overview of the 2023 tax calendar, just to refresh your memory on how all of this works. The properties are valued by the appraisal district on January 1, 2023, and every year thereafter. So in November of 2023, the tax office mailed the original tax bills that went out to all of your taxpayers in the Humble ISD district. They had until February 1st of 2024 to pay those taxes without any penalty or interest. They had that time before they became delinquent. On February 1st of 2024, they became delinquent, and they started incurring penalties and interest at 6% penalty in the beginning and then 1% interest per month. Ms. Jones and her tax office continued to collect those taxes after they became delinquent. And then in May of 2024, collection penalty letters were mailed to all taxpayers who hadn't paid their taxes yet, letting them know that as of July 1st, if the taxes weren't paid, they'd be turned over for collections to our law firm and then incur an additional collection penalty. The good news is that Ms. Jones and her office do an amazing job. I'm always blown away by the work that they do. They collected 98.25% of the taxes, which is over $231 million. What they turn over to us is a tiny percent, it's less than 2%. This year it was 1.75, which was about $4 million. And I love this pie chart because you see all of that blue, and that shows you all of the hard work that they're putting in. This slide is going to show you just the trends over the past few years, and you'll see consistently the tax office collecting over 98% and turning the rest over to us for collection. We all know Humble is growing, and it's growing fast, and it's growing fierce. So you can see that it's evidenced in the growth of the numbers over the years, with the exception of the 2023 turnover, which is your last column there. And that's partially because of the increase in the homestead exemption. So the levy went down a little bit, but the tax office still collected a huge majority of those taxes. I'm going to turn it over for Greg to give you the rest of the presentation.
All right, thank you. This is showing the current year turnover. That's how much was turned over to us in July of each year. So see this in July a year ago, we got turned over, this is July this year, it's turned over $3.5 million. You can see that's a lot lower than it was the previous year. That's because of the homestead exemption going up from 40,000 to 100,000. So it's not a problem, it's just that when they passed the amendment, when the voters approved it, we figured that would happen, and it did. And so we started working on the 2022 tax year last year. By June 30th of this year, we collected 69.11% of it. Our goal is always to get to 70%, so we got close, and we usually do here. And we just started working in July last year. We send out demand letters, we start calling. If we don't get a response from the owner, we contact the mortgage company, if there is one, and then we keep calling taxpayers, send letters, and we'll file litigation if we need to. This is for the current year we just started working on. You see the big chunk our accounts we just took over. This year is a little bit different since we now do hurricanes in July in Houston. So instead of working right away the first week of July, we hunkered down. Our power in our building was on the next day, but we were not calling taxpayers immediately. So we sent out our first round of demand letters in August, which is a few weeks later than normal. But still collections are going pretty well, considering it was a hurricane. You know, everything's going fine. It was not as bad as I feared initially when you hear hurricanes coming to town. And really nothing unusual. These show we always have some accounts coded as bad address. That's just from accounts we knew already didn't have a good address on them. Usually about $250,000 that's in litigation, payment agreements, and the accounts in deferral. If you're over 65 or disabled, you can get a tax deferral, and the taxes are due, but we can't force you to pay it, so those accounts we just don't work on. And the interest rate is quite a bit less than the normal rate. It's 5% instead of 12%. But the taxes will still due, so if you eventually it's no longer your homestead, the taxpayer will have to pay the taxes then. And this just shows how much is due for all years. Even though in the summer we go after the current year pretty hard, we keep working later in the year on the older years, and we just get that number down over time. So you can see in 23, what we just started was at $3.5 million in July, and 22, which was over 4 a year before, is down to 1.3, and it just gets lower and lower over time, and we just don't stop until we're done. And that is the end of the report. I was gonna tell Donnie how old I was in 1982 when they started, but afraid Melissa would say how old she was, and that just made me feel bad, so I'll skip that. But if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 7, our consent agenda. Item 7A, approval of minutes for the board meeting October 15th, 2024, regular board meeting. Consent, item 7B, approval of goods, professional services, and non-construction services exceeding $50,000 in the aggregate or $25,000 individually. Consent. Item 7C, construction and construction-related purchases. Consent. Item 7D, bond fund capital budgetary transfers. Consent. Item 7E, budgetary transfers and amendments. Consent. Item 7F, tax refunds. Consent. Item 7G, board authorization of interlocal agreements. Consent. Item 7H, approval of RFP 2021-005-12, general merchandise. Consent. Item 7I, approval of RFP 2021-006R-15, educational service consultants. Consent. Item 7J, approval of RFP number 2023-102-34, services, repairs, maintenance, installation district-wide. Consent. Item 7K, approval of RFP 2022-101-2021, miscellaneous instructional materials, consent. Item 7L, approval of RFP 2024-104-48, books and publications, consent. Item 7M, consideration of guaranteed maximum price amendment 2 for the Foster Elementary School replacement project, consent. Item 7N, general contractor selection for flooring project at Eagle Springs Elementary, consent. Item 7O, deductive change order, consent. Item 7P, Texas A&M AgriLife Extension 4-H adjunct faculty agreement and resolution regarding extracurricular status of 4-H organization, consent. Item 7Q, consider settlement agreement and release in the matter styled Lopez versus Humble ISD School District, cause number 202-387221 for a total sum of $9,000.
Pull.
Item 7Q is pulled. Mr. Holmes, can I get a motion?
I move to approve consent agenda items 7A through 7P, exclusive of pulled item 7Q.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded by Mr. Scarfo. Any discussion? All those in favor? Item passes 6-0. Mr. Holmes, can I get a motion?
I move to approve the settlement agreement and release in the matter styled Lopez versus Humble Independent School District, cause number 202-387221, for a total sum of $9,000 in attorney's fees to be paid by the Texas Association of School Boards Risk Management Fund, as recommended by the Fund and Litigation Counsel in the district's best interest.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Scarfo. Any discussion? Mr. Grabowski?
You know, when there's no fault, and it seems to be only an economic settlement, I don't agree with this. The lawsuit is utterly meritless. No board member nor the administration did anything wrong. And I don't want to hide from that. I want to take that on. I want to prove it to everybody. There's been no wrongdoing. We cannot be deceived into believing that the low dollar amount justifies the settlement. In fact, the settlement is very expensive when the cost measured in loss of public confidence in our integrity comes along with this settlement. It's implied wrongdoing by the board, and it's implied wrongdoing by the administration and Dr. Brown. Make no mistake, the public will reasonably view this settlement as an admission of guilt by the board, in my opinion. And having so little determination to defend ourselves, who can say what other grievances and lawsuits will be engendered by those determined to besmirch us? The proposed settlement cannot be even justified monetarily. Humble ISD has already paid the deductible legal fees. Additional legal fees are carried by our TASB insurance policy, as stated in the motion itself. I would challenge those of us who advocate this settlement to state where they think the merit of this lawsuit lies. Or do they stipulate that the settlement is justified merely for convenience and money? Summary, we are being urged merely as a matter of convenience, let's get this behind us, attitude, to admit to wrongdoing that we have never engaged in, and to betray the administration when we should be standing behind it. The consequent loss of public confidence in this board makes this a very expensive settlement indeed. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Grabowski. There is no admission of wrongdoing in the settlement. It is legal fees to an attorney that will be paid by the Texas Association of School Boards. Mr. Grabowski?
There is no legal admission of guilt. There is certainly a perception of guilt in the court of public opinion.
And that's one man's opinion. All right, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries 4-2. Item 8A, an order authorizing the issuance of Humble Independent School District unlimited tax school building and refunding bonds in one or more series, levying a tax and providing the security and payment thereof, authorizing a pricing officer to approve the award of the sale thereof in accordance with the specified parameters, authorizing the redemption prior to maturity of certain outstanding bonds, and enacting other provisions related thereto. Mr. Holmes, do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam President. I move to approve the order authorizing the issuance of Humble Independent School District unlimited tax school building and refunding bonds in one or more series, levying a tax and providing for the security and payment thereof, authorizing a pricing officer to approve the award of the sale thereof in accordance with specified parameters, authorizing the redemption prior to maturity of certain outstanding bonds, and enacting other provisions related thereto.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Grabowski? Is that right? Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Scarfo?
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Beatty, could you just give a 50,000-foot view of what this is about and why, and the financial interest in doing it?
Sure. So it is a lengthy motion, a lot of words in there, and it's 54-page bond order attached there too. So there's a lot of information in that. There's two primary items within this. We are trying to sell new money, a new money bond issuance, and what that'll allow us to do is stay on track, on schedule with our Bond 22 projects. So it'll fund those projects and allow us to stay on schedule. We want to get in front of that so that we can always have the funding available to finish projects. So we don't want to get into a project without the proper funding available to be able to finish. You know, we could potentially have a half-built building laying around somewhere if we don't do that on the front end. So that's one part of it. The other part of it is that we have an opportunity, a unique opportunity that we can have a refunding as part of this transaction as well. So what you can think of that kind of like a mortgage refinance. We have the opportunity to call those bonds and do a refunding sale to pay off those bonds early and save the debt service quite a bit of money. So I'll have to run the numbers by the math stars to have them do some calculation on net present value, just to double check our work. But anything can happen when we go out on pricing day. The market can change on us, and things can. We never know what to expect when we actually go out to sale. But it looks like we could save our debt service total $5 million and likely about $500,000 a year debt service payment. And when we do that, we don't extend the maturities of those bonds that we're going to be refunding. So the maturity schedule will stay the same, just save money on the finance charge for the district.
Anybody else? Mr. Grabowski?
Keep that microphone, Mr. Beatty. I've had a couple of people ask about the prediction of 3.5% to 4% is what it goes to 2022, 2023, and if I'm correct, you're predicting now for the future. Can you explain why it's your best educated guess versus, and why sometimes it's a little higher, and in fact you may even expect it to be about right on this time or even lower? Can you give a little bit of background on that, please?
Sure. So we go out ahead of time to get you all's approval to get authorization for the transaction. This is a parameter order, so we put in parameters that we feel confident about adhering to. One of those, specifically on the refunding, is that we don't complete the transaction unless we can save the district 3% or more net present value on that transaction. So that parameter is in place, and if we don't meet that parameter, then we don't complete the transaction. As far as interest rates go, there's so many different things that can happen, and this actual pricing day will be over 2 months from now. So a lot can happen in that. So we do our best to estimate what it will look like, but anything can happen, especially right now. You see the Fed funds rate changing and going down recently. Those factors. Fed has impact on our pricing day and what rates we'll receive. Geopolitical tensions the night before a pricing day could affect things. Economic reports that week of our sale. Competition in the market. It's really subject to the market and the buyers of our bonds on what rate we'll actually get on that day. So it's really difficult to lock in, and be 100% accurate with that rate. But
No, thank you.
Anybody else?
As you say, but at the same time, we're not locked in, we're not painting ourselves into a corner in terms of what we're attempting to do.
No.
I think that's the important thing for people to understand.
Yep.
Giving you the
That's
ability.
the benefit of the parameter order is that it allows some flexibility with that transaction.
All righty. All those in favor? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to item 9A, Intruder Detection Audit Report. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, ma'am. The Texas School Safety Center conducted an intruder detection audit pursuant to legal requirements. 6 schools were reviewed. 1 finding was identified across all campuses reviewed. All corrective actions have been completed at this time. Further detail has been provided to the board in executive sessions for the purposes of safety and security.
Any questions or discussions from the board regarding this item? Moving on to item 9B, South Agriculture Barn Renovations Update. Dr. Melissa Lee has a short presentation on the updates to the South Ag Barn.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Thank you for having us tonight. Really quick, I want to thank the CTE team, Larry Wilson, Kelly Sharp, Parker Blair, our ag teachers for putting together the scope of work for what they wanted to see, along with the parents and student input for improvements at the South Ag facility, and Jason and his whole team for being instrumental in helping us get all the bids and quotes together on this. But what we have here today is a quick brief update on what we're hoping to do at the South Ag Barn this year. So on the left, you see our South Ag Barn is broken up into separate barns, whereas our north is primarily all one facility. So we're not looking to change that at the South Barn, but we are going to do upgrades within each of those individual barns that you're going to see in the scope here. Due to a lot of things, mostly because this is all individualized work and spec'd out for those barns. It is all work that the contractors have to individualize for each of them. And we wanted to make sure we weren't causing any harm to the animals coming up with livestock show. So we are preparing to do this right after we move all the animals out the first week of February to the livestock show, so that they won't have any stress or harm to them as well. And none of the students will need to be there either. It'll be a clean opportunity for us to start the construction work at that time. And hopefully, if this all gets done in time, we'll have a grand opening in May. So this is one of the things you're going to see in the scope of the project here. The South Ag Barn on the left here is open-walled facilities for the most part, whereas on the right you see the North Ag Barn has closed walls, but there is venting at the top and the bottom. So the South will have a similar look to that. It won't be exactly the same, but it will also have flaps at the bottom for weatherproofing at the South Barn for what we're looking to accomplish here. Also, you can see the South Ag Barn has several open ends on the barn that aren't closed in. Those are going to be closed in, as well as the garage doors like you see on the right that we have at the North Barn will be added in as well to provide additional weatherproofing and ways for the students, faculty, everybody to prepare the animals and keep them safe from weather conditions. This is one that we're also very excited about. Currently, we have sand on top of dirt in the pens and several of them at the South Ag Barn, whereas on the north, it's just easier for cleaning out for the animals that they can scoop out the shavings and the sand. So that's going to get upgraded on the South Barn with all new concrete for those barns as well. And one of the things that you see often too is, unfortunately, when the bars are spaced too far apart, animals can get in them. So we're limiting the space that will be available in the pens, so it'll be closer to the North Ag barn there to limit that availability for animals to get stuck in the pens. It's safer for all of them. This is a very exciting one as well. Currently, our South Ag Barn does not have a designated location for sand storage. It's just stored on the grass, which allows for bugs and other things to get into it. So what we have on the right here is what we have at the North Ag Barn, and this is going to look very similar, honestly, at the South. There will be one for sand and one for manure that the tractors can get in and out of, so that's a much easier storage for the students, the animals, and for cleanup. And then on the right, you see here, we have a secured wash facility for the cattle. And that's concrete posts that limits the animals' movement, allows the students to wash and groom them in a safer manner. On the South Barn currently, it's not a fixed facility. It can be moved around. So it's going to get fixed on the spot you see there on the left, and it will be outdoors, but they will have that fixed facility just like they have on the north. There's several other little things that are doing on with this, as far as, of course, replacing all the walls, any of the damage, any of the locks that have been rusted out over the years. All of that will be a part of this process as well. But again, I really want to thank Jason and his team for helping us put this all together to get all this. And hopefully by May, we will have a grand opening of a brand new looking facility on the north with a lot more improvements for our animals and our students. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any questions or discussions from the board? Mr. Holmes?
Sure. So thanks for the updates. Two questions. One, what is the total cost of these renovations? And number two, I also know that the South Ag Barn has a lot of flooding issues. Is that going to be addressed as well? I know when it rains sometimes that
We have flooding in the field specifically, not in the actual animal pens themselves. So what we're looking to do is move the fence out so that they are not having to go into the flooded part as much, but that's something separate from this that we're just going to be able to do once we get that sand pit out of the way. Because right now it's sitting right in front of that fence line that you can see there. So once we have the new sand and manure and everything taken care of, we should be able to move some of that fence line. So the flooding is really the easement part back there in the field. And of course, they can't walk their animals back there and exercise them if it's flooded. But the barns themselves don't flood at the south as much as they did at the old north.
Okay.
And as for total cost, Jason?
Yeah, the cost is about $450,000.
Okay.
It is coming from bond funds.
2022 bond.
Anybody else?
Just wondering. I know that we have some pretty concerned parents for the South Barn. I'm not one. I just asking. All of these concerns, have we ran it by? I don't know if there's a booster club for the South Ag Barn, that team. Have we ran some of these by them just to see if we've covered everything that they see? Because those kids and those parents are normally the ones that are they're there all the time. What are your thoughts?
We didn't have like a formal meeting to gather it. What we did was the barn team is a collection of ag teachers, and Parker Blair, our barn manager, and Kelly Sharp, our ag coordinator. They took all of the complaints and concerns that parents have listed to all of them and compiled them together. They walked the barn with that list with all of the contractors and bids that Jason's team provided to ensure that we were addressing everything that they had collected together.
All right. Because I know we will get some emails and texts if
We're very
there's anything.
hopeful this corrects the majority of the problems. Of course, as things go through construction, we know that we will be addressing anything additional we can. And like I said, some things aren't going to be addressed through this specific bond funds that we're addressing through local funds as well. But this part of it is specific to the bond funds that Jason mentioned.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you, Dr. Lee.
Updates, item 9C, updates from our board associations and committees. Does anybody have a report? Mr. Kirchhoffer?
The audit committee update. First, want to thank Whitley Penn. I know they're gone. And thank you to our auditors for their work on the audit. It is impressive to see revenues exceeding budgeted amounts and less expenses than budgeted during a difficult year for school finance. We are doing a good job creating and executing the budget. I was pleased to see a very low percentage of the overall budget going towards general administration. I believe that is indicative of a very efficient admin team and allows more funds to be directed towards instruction. I'm also proud to see we weathered a very difficult year, district finance, with an overall decrease of only $2 million to fund balance. This allows us to maintain a very healthy fund balance. Thank you to Dr. Brown, district leadership, and the financial services team for all the work they do to keep the district in such a strong financial position. You can give me a breath.
Anybody else? Mr. Holmes?
Yeah, we had our first technology committee meeting about 3 weeks ago. Thank you, Karen, for the minutes. I have not had a chance to review them yet. Board members, as soon as I do, they'll be released to the board. I think it was a great meeting, first one. Chris Cummings and his team did a phenomenal job in presenting where we are. I asked quite a few questions on some of the challenges that I've heard from the community, even some of our students. They were unflinching in answering where the challenges were. Our next meeting will be to really start looking at how do we resolve them. I think if I can just say this one thing that I think stood out to me is that we have a really strong team. We're here to support them. Dr. Brown and I think several other stakeholders were on the call, and we're just looking to get us back to where we need to be. I mean, we're a district of almost 50,000 students, and one of those things like internet, you would think that it would be much more stable, but I didn't realize that due to the barrel this past summer, some of the issues with some of our internet outages have really been because of they're still fixing tree lines, right? And as they're cutting down trees, it's taking down power lines. So we're looking at ways to mitigate that, but it's a cost to it, right? So they presented what those estimates are. We're going to be looking at how to have maybe buried internet cable or fiber feeds. So a lot to do, first meeting, but I'm excited, I think, where we'll be able to take this. So community, you should see some more improvements coming forward. But again, thank you to, Chris Cummings and his team.
Thank you, Mr. Holmes. Mr. Kirchhoffer?
All right, we're back. The Finance Committee. The Finance Committee met last week, and we discussed the auditor's report and the current budget along with next year's budget. I'm pleased with how the 2024 year ended. It shows that we are in a really good position for the future. We are also in a really good position with the current year budget. Attendance is up, and we can see the positive results of the open enrollment initiative this year. We are currently projecting a surplus for the year if the trend continues. We started initial discussions for next year's budget. We are hearing positive things from legislators, so we feel optimistic about the state allocating more funds to school districts. The budget development process will begin shortly after we get back from Christmas break. We also discussed the upcoming bond sale and refunding. Billy went over that tonight. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. The new money bond sale will allow us to stay on schedule with our bond projects. We were happy to see the district also taking advantage of a refunding opportunity that will likely create significant savings to our debt service. We will get the full minutes out to the rest of the board soon. Thank you.
Anybody else? Our last item, item 9D, Financial Services Reports, is a monthly administrative item. Any questions or discussions from the board regarding this item? Moving on to our closing items, are there any topics for future board business? The time is now 8:45 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.